How's it going, everyone? Mad Spartan here, and today I'm bringing you, if you guys tuned into the stream on Saturday, you guys already know kind of what I'm about to do. We did do the Crucible run on Saturday. Thank you to everyone that showed up, and thank you to everyone that, was chatting and stuff. I know we had a couple errors, but everything's fixed and everything should be good now. But today I'm going to be giving you just a little bit of a guide on the Yondu path specifically. That was the path that we ended up doing. For those of you that watched, I learned a lot. Some of the matchups that I came with weren't great. Some I learned were actually great. Just improvements along the way. So I wanted to make this little guide so you guys don't make the same mistakes I did. And for those of you that are kind of waiting till the guides come out, if you want to watch this and kind of get, a better view on kind of the difficulty on it, I'm telling you guys, it really isn't that hard. You just kind of need a decent roster. So I'm going to be going through every fight, recommending maybe 3 to 5 champs that you can use. I understand I'm probably going to be recommending the same champ a few times, but that's just entirely up to you to see which one you'd prefer. I tried not to do that. Like, I don't have Herc recommended on a lot of fights. I think I have it recommended on like 3 or 4 fights. I have CGR on a couple fights. So, like, it's kind of up to you guys what you see fit, but there is still plenty of other counters for all the fights. First up is Yondu, which typically, like, I was a little bit worried on the fight, but it really wasn't that bad. I went in with Chavez. As you guys can see here, it does have Rich Get Richer, Feats of Power, and Super Machinism. The Machinism, I kept forgetting about. When you stun, it reflects onto you, so you could hit you a couple times, but it's not the end of the world, especially if you're using Chavez or you're just not an idiot like I am. But the big thing is when he gets above a bar, he gets a Fury, and if he happens to have more buffs than you, he gets Rich Get Richer, which is 5% of a bar of power over a few seconds. So what you're going to want to do is either use champs that have more buffs than him, or someone like Chavez that reverses power gain. Sandman could work as well, just a lot of petrifies. So you could use Gallon, Herc, any real Cosmic, Angela, any of the Venoms. So there really isn't, like, this fight is definitely not difficult. It should not be a roadblock fight for you guys. Literally use anyone that you could either take the Rich Get Richer or someone that can reverse the power gain. This is a huge list of people that can take that. Next up, we do have Black Widow Deadly Origin, which this was the first fight that I made a real error on. I used Bishop on this fight because I saw it had tenacity, and then if you read bullet time, if they get stunned, they immediately remove the stun and gain an evade charge. Now, I didn't know how that was categorized. I don't know if it was categorized as a purify, if it was just taking it away, because obviously it specifies it takes it away, but it has to be some type of method. So I ended up using Bishop because I thought maybe when you try to stun them, they'll take the stun away for bullet time, but then get passively stunned, so you can take advantage of the 200% attack. It did not go that way. Every time I tried to stun her, it would just get converted by bullet time, which isn't a bad thing. It's just you kind of had to redo how I was going to do the fight. Now, there is a bunch of champs that can work for this. You could try to fight through the tenacity. I know that when I used Bishop, I would stack up the bullet times, and then I would Dex to convert it to a passive stun, and I would throw the big SP2. Pretty much any champ that has like a big damaging special would work, because you convert it into the stun and then you throw that big special and you should do decent damage. Anyone really works here. You can use APOC. The thing with APOC is his stun's still going to get taken away, but his other debuffs won't. So you'll be able to combat tenacity with his specials, which makes the big burst if you can throw it into a stun vulnerability. There's a bunch of people. CGR works well if you can stack enough of the bullet times and the stun's long, you throw the big SP2 into it. And you could use literally anyone, like Sauron I put on here, just to show you guys that literally anyone can be used on it. It's really just whoever you're comfortable with. This is one of the fights I would definitely like skip over when you're planning, because then you can go back to it and whoever you have left. Like, I did that a few times. I know that, like, with the Red Hulk, the fight itself wasn't very hard, so I kind of waited till the end when you only have like 5 or 6 champs left to figure out who you're taking the rest with. You kind of just throw them like a dud champ, because it's not really a node that requires a direct counter or anything like that. Unlike the next fight, the Clairvoyant, she definitely needs some type of counter. There's multiple ways you can go about it. As you can see here, you do have Footloose. Can't use any robotic attackers because she's constantly throwing those SP1s, and she does throw a lot of heavies. So if you use a robot that does get dealt the bleed damage, she will put the Incinerate on you, I believe, and then you just die. You just die. So we went in with Rintra. I do believe that any neutralized champ would work for this. I think it's more of we're going to be trying to get rid of those buffs that come out before, they get built up and everything just kind of goes bad. Juke is definitely a severely underrated node. It's on a lot of these fights, so I definitely recommend if it's on the node to be building it. So they kind of buffed it like a couple of months ago, like a while ago actually, where it actually tells you which combo ender you did previously. So it's very hard to lose the juke unless you're purposely doing it. So just pay attention to that juke, build it up to 10, and that's a 70% attack increase. So it's definitely something that you should definitely do. It does have Prey on the Weak, which isn't a big deal. She can't really nullify. I think it was more for the buff immunity. So just don't use a lot of champs that do buffs, and then you should be fine. You're going to be dealt a lot of bleeds, but the bleeds don't do any damage. They do some damage, but you're going to willpower regen most of it. So there's multiple ways you can go about this. I think any neutralized champ works. You have Tigra, you have Wiccan, you have Rintra. Pretty much any of those champs work. Or you could use a slow champ like Shang-Chi or Quicksilver. Just anyone that can get rid of the Footloose itself. And then at that point, it's basically just a regular fight. I do think Quicksilver is a good option for this because it does stop Prey on the Weak as well. I don't think you'll be gaining any buffs because he's immune to the dexterity buff, but if you happen to, you'll be able to get rid of it, which is good. Next up is Venom, which I think one of the easier fights. The big thing with it is this node right here. When he gets an armor, every time you hit him, he's going to do a bleed to you. And ironically, I believe that this Venom is programmed to always start with an armor, so there's no way to get rid of it. You could use someone like Symbiote Supreme, but I don't think he's as consistent, because if you happen to mess up and you don't have a stagger up, he could, one little armor could sneak in there if you don't have an SP3 ready to get rid of it. If you don't have an SP2 with the Fury Blessing to get an armor break. Like, I feel like there's so many things that could happen to end it for you. That's why I believe just using bleed immunes that aren't robots is ideal. As you can see, it's another fight that has Foresight on it. You can go for it if you want. You don't have to. You know what I mean? I do believe this is one of the fights that Ghost works very well, because those of you that don't know, Ghost can trigger Foresight very easily with her phase into the medium attack. So it's pretty much just easy Foresight, and also you're able to convert that bleed into a Fury. So she's actually a really good option for it. And I don't think she works on too many of the other fights, so this could be an ideal Ghost fight for you. We also have Howard the Duck, because he's bleed immune. He's definitely really good. CGR is good too, but I think he's too useful. You wouldn't want to use him here unless you had the other counters for the other fights. And someone like Gambit, just someone that has insane bleed resistance. I think he has like 110% bleed resistance, so he actually heals from it when he has his armor up. The only way that armor goes away is if you get dealt enough damage. So just don't get hit that fight and you should be fine. So definitely one of the easier fights. Definitely went really quick with that analysis. The next up is Green Goblin, which is one of the fights at first you're going to look at and you're going to be a little overwhelmed. You see the 50% less specials is annoying because you're constantly blocking. Not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. You could try to use champs that loop stuns with their SP1 with the 50%, but thanks to the madness passives that Green Goblin has, he actually does reduce your power gain by a lot. By a lot. If the green is more than the orange, you're not going to be getting like basically any type of power. So you're not able to comfortably loop the SP1 stuns. I mean, unless like it's a really long stun, but I don't think that I can't think of anything that would do that. But I would say your best idea is probably someone like Venompool, who's immune to power drain, because the other part of this node is when you have increased power gain from an energized, but once you get, it's like a little bit over 2 bars, you get power drain all the way back down, which doesn't matter for champs that are immune to power drain. So like Venompool is really good. I do like Gladiator a lot for this fight because he's also immune to any form of power manipulation. And just CGR is the person we ended up using. You're just trying to nuke this champ as fast as possible. You don't want anything to go wrong. 50% less specials for CGR is really good as long as you can maintain the power drain that comes. So, yeah, and the big thing is don't get hit by his specials. He gets like a ton of stuff if you get hit by the specials. 100% duration, and while under the effect of a weakness, you're power drained. It's just, and then you get dealt damage. Like it is the end of it. If I suggest if you get hit by one of his specials, just back out immediately. It's a horrible fight for you, and it's early enough that you could reset the whole run and go back. For someone like me, I don't like to use items like that, so I would I would go back if I were to die this early. Next up is Rhino. Not really a hard fight. You know, you're going to read this Tantrum one. It's going to seem a little overwhelming. Every time you hit them, he gets a Tantrum charge, but if he's under the effect of certain debuffs when you knock him down, nothing happens. They go away, you know, and then he's not able to gain any Tantrum charges while under those debuffs. Compared to if he didn't have those debuffs and you knocked him down, he actually does insane damage to you. So it's a lot of figuring out which debuffs you need. I do believe that this is a Joe Fixit MVP fight. Like I think if you have Joe Fixit, definitely use him on this fight. Something that I had to learn real quick when I was fighting him, because I know that there's a way to manipulate the disorient from coming out, but I didn't know. You have to look into his kit, and you need to have the same pair. You literally just need 2 of the same suits, which isn't hard to do, but there could be a couple times in the fight where you're going to look at your cards and none of them match. You know, you could have ended a combo in a light because you didn't want him to get the SP2 or something. You know what I mean? Like, you could have a heart, you could hit him with a heavy, and then you not have the same suits. So the big thing with that is you always have to make sure you have 2 of the same suits with Joe Fixit, and then throw that SP1 or SP2 really, because with that, on activation of the special, it will give you a disorient if you have the same pair. So it's definitely ideal. I do believe Overseer would work on this too, because once they throw a special, it does say concussion, but he also has a concussion. I think it's called a special concussion or something like that. Like it's called something concussion, so I do believe it would still work, but that's kind of, I haven't tested that yet. So, you know, if that works, you have a consistent concussion the whole game, and then you won't really have to worry about any type of tantrum charges. Who else works here? Scorpion also works because his SP1 does do a taunt, so you'll be spamming the SP1 with Scorpion to keep that going. And with the power shield, you know, it's someone like Scorpion, it's not ideal. Like I said, it's definitely better with Joe Fixit because of the bleeds on the SP1. But if you don't have him, you know what I mean? If Overseer works, you can use him here. If you have Scorpion, he works here too. And yeah, I mean, it should work. The Ineverate is kind of a debuff that's kind of hard to come by. I know that Gulk on his SP2 has an Everett. If you want to use Gulk, it's just going to be a little difficult with the power shield and the bubble shield. Like, it's just kind of annoying. So yeah, if you have Joe Fixit, definitely use him for this fight. I would definitely recommend using him. Next up, we do have Red Hulk, which, for those of you that watched, it was a horrible fight. It was one of the fights, it was actually the only fight that I died more than once on. And it was because I kept going for the Foresight with Aegon, and I just died. And another time, like one time, like my input dropped, I wasn't able to get the block, which was crazy. Or maybe I just had a slow reaction time, I don't know. But there's not really much to this fight. You know, you can't block attacks from him. There is a few fights that actually have this note: when you block an attack, you get dealt a disorient. So you could use someone like APOC, who gets immunity to disorient, so you'll have to get hit with like 1 or 2 disorients to get the immunity, and then you'll be good. The main thing about this fight is that he's super tanky. He has power gain SP1, which off first glance doesn't really matter too much until you realize that he will be able to gain his 10 heat charges really fast, and each heat charge is physical resistance, and eventually he'll be doing no damage. It's to incentivize you to want to get Foresight, but then his AI is very weird when it comes to trying to trigger an intercept with him. He'll just dash back and throw a light and slam you with 10 heat charges. And then the buffet is annoying, it'll get him back to 100, so we ended up using Aegon, which was horrible. No one really said anything about it, but the Aegon wasn't a good choice because you had to play perfect the entire time. I mean, if you don't have a problem with that, he is a good option for it if you just spam the SP2s. You could go for Foresight if you want, but I recommend not going for Foresight. I recommend just playing perfect, throwing your SP2s when you have them. Relics are definitely very useful for fights like this, so you don't have to overextend. I think a 6-hit combo with Aegon, as long as he has like above like 3% of a bar of power, gives him an entire bar. So you're never going to be having to block hits until like that weird interaction when like he's just under. Then you just dash back and hit his block. Star-Lord works really well because you're going to be building him up. Shang-Chi works. It's just going to be a little different because if you don't build up enough chi charges, you won't kill him. There is no damage cap for this thing, which I found out on the Gwempyreon when I used Star-Lord. We were hitting well over 50k, so there is no power cap for this or anything like that, so we'll be fine with that. You could build up Shang-Chi, but I I would say maybe like 150 chi charges just to be safe. And then you also have to trigger buffet and then hit him with it, because I believe the SP2 will give you a few buffs. I think whether it's precisions or cruelties, and you kind of need those to do more damage. So I would definitely figuring out how to get buffet. Maybe do a 4-hit combo to get the unblockable buff to get it taken away. And then throw the SP2, and you should get him down like that. There's multiple ways to go about it. You could do a heal block champ like Mysterio or Gulk. You know, Gulk's SP1 does that. For those champs, you might actually have to go for the Foresight, so, you know, it all depends on how you want to do it. Spider Pig, Scorpion, Overseer, you know, champs that have a ton of debuffs to use the Despair Mastery for heal block. Those champs are really good too. I do think Spider Pig will be a little bit more ideal for this because he is very SP1 happy. I guess that's just how they programmed him. So you're going to be doing a big burst damage with him, and I heard that when you put the Ant-Man relic on him, I heard it's a game changer. So I'd probably say the MVP for this would probably be someone like Spider Pig, if you're going for that. Or Mysterio is really good too. I mean, I have a rank 3 7-star Mysterio, so I'm very pro Mysterio. He has a built-in heal block. He has poisons. You know, he has damage reflection. He goes miss. Like, he's just overall an amazing champ. But I would definitely say go with someone like Spider Pig here. Next up is Hulkbuster, which we actually had to make like a last-minute audible for this fight. As you can see here, every 10 hits he does gain an armor, 50% armor for that fact, for 30 seconds. So it's pretty much on him for a while, and then, you know, by the time that first armor runs out, he probably already has like another like 3 armors. Spiked armor is annoying too. Every time you crit, he has a chance to gain a physical resistance buff, which reflects the damage back that you do to him. And then these other 2 nodes kind of get like overlooked, but they're actually a big part of the fight. As you can see here, the attacker's crit rating is reduced by 50% for each buff on them. So basically, if you use champs that have a ton of buffs, you're never going to crit, which means spiked armor is never going to come out. Any champ inflicted with a shock debuff lands guaranteed hits for the duration of the shock debuff. Those of you that don't know, Hulkbuster does give shocks to you. I think it's like when you crit, he has a chance to cash in an armor to shock you. So there's multiple ways you can go about this fight. I specifically went with Venom Pool. I think that was probably the best option. Venom Pool is shock immune when he's against techs. He's also power drain immune, but I mean, not that that matters. And he's armor break immune as well. I think specifically against techs, or he might always be armor break immune. I'm not really sure about that. But the big thing is that his SP1 nullifies armors and any buff, which gives him, you know, his cooking meter. And the big thing is when he nullifies an armor, he actually regens like basically all of his health back. So it's basically just an endless fight of you throwing the SP1, nullifying all the armors, and getting your health back. You just consistently do that over and over and over and over again, until eventually you get him down and you stay at 100%. You'll also have so many buffs that you're never going to be critting, which is really good. I recommend, if you're going to use Venom Pool, because I actually use him a lot. If you go to my older videos, I used to use him for war all the time. I would recommend, if he's awake, to go with the Malice buff, because the fight does last long. You know, most of his fights are going to last long. So you do the Malice buff to increase the potency of it, and as the fight gets longer, the more damage you do increase with the Furies. It's amazing. I definitely recommend doing that. You could go Energize to get back to the SP1 faster, or, you know, you'll see there's a couple times, I think I did it 1 or 2 times, where I throw the SP3 during that fight and I pause it a bunch of times, because with the armor break immunity, with nullifying the armors, your cooking meter hits 100 like a million times. You get to build up to like 11 Furies. It's amazing. Definitely a good guy. If you don't have Venom Pool though, because I don't blame you if you don't, you could go multiple ways. You can go characters that don't crit. You have Guardian, you have Shocker, you have Crossbones. The only problem with that is there's going to be a ton of armors. So you're going to be basically doing no damage. For someone like Shocker, you're probably going to have to ramp him up like 5 or 6 times, I would say. I mean, I know he does a ton of damage, but you have to understand that these armors are going to stack a lot. And he might have like 6 or 7 of them. The SP2 alone is almost 10 hits. So you're definitely going to be already giving him an armor. You could wait for them to fall off, then throw the SP2 if you wanted to, but that seems like more of a hassle than anything else. Or you could just use a bunch of cosmics that have a ton of buffs to stop yourself from critting. You know, you have Herc, you have CGR, you have Venom, pretty much anyone you want. But yeah, I think that's a good option. Next up is Vision Arcus, which I'm sorry in advance, I didn't have a lot of... There's going to be like I think there's like 2 or 3 fights on here that I don't have a lot of counters for. Whether it's just my mind can't think of any when I was planning it, or just my counter was so good there's no reason to use anyone else. So next up we do have Vision. I used Wiccan because of the armor break immunity. If you're immune to Cold Snap or if you're immune to armor break, you don't get dealt any damage. The fight is big on doing armor breaks to you from afar. When he activates a special, you get heal blocked. The power shield's a big problem because if you're using someone that isn't immune, you're just getting dealt damage from the cold snap, and then it's a mess. I do think Wiccan's the best option here though, because you can apply the neutralize. His heavy can get rid of power gains, which in return increases your power gain rate. And then you just throw that SP2. And the thing with power shield that some people don't really know or they overlook is, yeah, the special is 400% increase, but if your special is doing any debuffs, those debuffs are 400% increase as well. So you guys are going to see, if you guys go back to my live stream and watch it, that my SP2 does insane damage when it converts the incinerates to plasmas, and it's amazing. So I would definitely say he's the best option. There are other ways to go about it though. You could use someone like Chavez. Chavez reverses the power gain with her purple dimension, and then if you let him stack up all of the power gains, yeah, you only need 2 purple dimensions. Doesn't matter how strong the power gain is. Once you have, I think one purple stops the power gain, 2 reverses it, and then 3 like really reverses it. So if you can get at least 2 consistently on, and then any damage you take, as long as you don't have a heal block, you can throw that SP2 with the purple dimension and heal all your health back. So I do think Chavez is another good option, but I would definitely say just use Wiccan. I don't care if you have him rank 3, rank 2. You could probably get this guy down. That's how fast the fight went for me. So, but if you don't, Chavez is always a good option too. Next up is Hela, who's one of the easier fights. Lazarus is annoying, but it's a node that you can just power through eventually. And the big one is Heavy Assault, which surprisingly, like, a few fights have this node, which just makes it so much easier for us. One thing that I have to warn you is she's going to be unblockable most of the fight. It's not the end of the world if you're someone that can't deal with an unblockable champ. I'm sorry about that. I guess I would say maybe start... I would block her specials a lot more. I wouldn't dex any of them. And I would just kind of be a little bit more in her face and aggressive, because most times the AI is going to throw the special kind of like when you're in their face and then you dash back just to gain some distance a lot of times. So I would definitely just block all of her specials if you can't deal with an unblockable champ. We use Doom here. I do think any champ that can combo into their heavy is a good option, because that heavy alone has the 500% increase. Once again, you know, Chavez is really good. We use Dr. Doom for it because of just how good he is. When you hit her with a heavy and then she gets knocked down, I think she gains a buff, but because the stagger's on, you get another shock on them, which means you can basically dash right in and throw another heavy, and you can combo into it infinitely, and then you can do the Doom loop with the SP3 to constantly keep the power down. And the only thing you have to worry about is Lazarus, which isn't even a node that you have to worry about. All you have to deal with is her going back to full health a few times, which isn't the end of the world. You know, you can kill her a few more times if you want. And the good thing is, before she uses any Lazarus effects, she actually goes immortal or indestructible first. So you can actually use that indestructible to get rid of the last Lazarus charge if you're actually that good with it and you prioritize getting it down first before you got it down to 0. You know, you could use that to your advantage. But Gladiator works here too. Silk works here too. Doom works here. You know, any champ. I think any champ that can just combo into their heavy is really good. You could use a character, like you could just parry heavy with anyone. Like Archangel's probably a good option here too, just because of the debuffs. But once again, I do think Archangel's a little too valuable to be used on a fight like this that can be taken with like 7 other champs. We actually use Archangel on this guy, Weapon X, but we'll get to him in a second. Next up is Juggernaut, which has pretty interesting nodes. He has Rising Sun and he has Caustic Temper. So Caustic Temper is a node where basically you have to use a poison immune champ that also gains Fury. But because they paired it with Rising Sun, you really only need a poison immune champ. So there is a couple characters you can use. Juke, like I said, another underrated buff, or another underrated node. You definitely want to build that up, get the 70% attack increase. The unblockable specials are annoying, which if you happen to watch my live stream, I get hit by that SP1 a million times because of how weird the timing is on it. But Gulk is a good option here if you guys watched my other video. He bypasses the Rising Sun. As you can see here, you gain 10 Fury buffs, and when one expires, or you don't get the heavy off in time to get rid of it, and it goes over 10, you get dealt a passive degen, which Gulk actually gets Face Me from. I wouldn't say you can just go full beast mode with it. You do have to kind of watch the Rising Sun. You can work with it for a little bit, but you definitely should ideally get rid of those Furies if you can. You should not be just powering through, because you will eventually degen to death. It is a very, obviously, as you can tell, his attack is really high, so 12% of the defender's attack is still a lot when you're negating 80% of the damage. So you guys are going to see, like, if you tune into just that fight, you'll see that the Rising Sun actually does take some of my damage, so I kind of rewire how I'm going to do the fight, and then we just kind of go into the SP1 stun and then hit him with a heavy, and we actually got pretty far, and then we die right at the end, which sucked. But I definitely think he's a good option. You could use Silk, because Silk combos into her heavy, so she's able to get rid of those Furies really quickly. And if she's awake, she does get the slow, but you don't need it. It's not a, you can just parry Juggernaut to get rid of his Unstoppable. And you can use someone like Idoom, who, like I just said, you can parry into his, you can combo into his stun, and the SP2 power drain is pretty good too. And especially when built up with Juke, it's overall any champ, with that 70% attack increase is pretty nutty. I do think, Human Torch would work here. I think Human Torch pretty much works on like every Mystic here. Maybe not the Spider Witch, but that all depends on your opinion if you care about the poisons or not. Next up, we do have Weapon X, which, as you can tell, doesn't really have a lot of nodes. It's just poison vulnerability. His bleeds do more, and he's more aggressive. But Weapon X is already aggressive, so it's just like a super aggressive AI. We did use Archangel here just because of the poisons that he does. Pretty much any champ that poisons is good. I-Bomb works here. Scorpion, you could use APOC to build him up to 3 missions. And even like someone like Mysterio works here too, because his poison's actually pretty good. But you're going to have to kind of play Weapon X then. The other champs kind of get him down relatively quickly, and with someone like Mysterio, it's kind of takes some time, because you could either do it just spamming your heavies to gain the poison, or you could do it the right way, get the SP3 with the 300% attack increase, and then combo into a 3-charge poison to get the most damage out of it, but you're not going to be able to kill him with that. It'll just take a lot longer. You could passively heal block him, but there's no reason to. So I would definitely say there's a couple champs that could work here. If you want to use your Archangel here, you can. I-Bomb works well, Scorpion. APOC's really good too if you haven't used APOC yet, just because his SP1 does poisons as well. Sorry, I'm having like a heartburn here, so it's just killing me. Next up, we do have Electro Luke, which there's multiple ways you can go about this fight. It has Arrogance, so the 10 hits, you start to miss. Combo Party's a really underrated buff. It gives you Cruelty, so you do more damage, but the reason why they did that is because he reflects the damage you do back to him. So you're just going to be doing insane damage to yourself. And as you can see here, it does have that same node where after 2 bars he gains prowesses. There's going to be a ton of people that have that node. And then something when he has 10 buffs, when he has 10 prowesses, he becomes unblockable. But his specials are always unblockable pretty much. You should never be in the same vicinity as him when he throws that SP1 because you can't dex it. And the SP2 is always a problem, so you should never let him get 2 bars if you can help it. There's a bunch of people you can use here. You can use non-contact champs to negate the damage back, like Strife, Prowler, Gambit. They're all good options. You could just beast mode it with Herc like we did, and CGR is another good option. You're going to be doing, a lot of the damage is going to come back to you. You might not be able to one-shot him with CGR, but Herc, we did really well with Herc. Got him on immortality and just killed it. And then of course someone like Namor works that reflects the damage back. But who the hell has a ranked up Namor? Because I don't. So unfortunately we had to beast mode it with Herc. Next up is Punishing Angel, which is basically just a hybrid of Punisher and Angela. I think the only thing they have of each other is Punisher specials, and then he gets a ton of buffs like Angela. Well, just to make sure. What makes him different is he has Electro's passive shock, in case you guys didn't know that, it reflects the damage, and also the indestructible buff that Luke Cage gets, just in case you guys... I know I didn't say it, but just in case you guys needed it. This node is pretty interesting. At the end of the day, it's just a regular champ. The Mercy node is kind of annoying, where every time you dex, you gain one little charge, and then when you parry, it's kind of the opposite of that bullet time one that the Black Widow Deadly Origin had. Every time you dex, you gain a charge, and then when you parry, you convert all the Mercy charges, and they fall off one at a time. You know, I think they all last 1.5 seconds. So if you dex 10 times, you're going to have 10 that each go down one at a time, like kind of like a Howard the Duck buff or debuff. And then that's how your defender takes damage. I think you guys are going to see here. Yeah, the attacker gains 80% attack rating for their specials, and I think the defender takes 90% less damage when there isn't a Mercy passive on them. So it's not really, I mean, 80% attack rating, obviously amazing. You're not going to be able to use any champs that have insane specials to like nuke her. You're going to have to kind of play her, which is kind of annoying because she does throw those specials a lot. So you're going to be blocking a lot. So I do recommend champs that have a high block proficiency, or someone that maybe evades the special. Like Silk is a good option. We ended up using Idoom because Idoom's block proficiency is really good, and he had some form of power control, but then it ended up that we found out that you don't really use him for the power control. Unless you maneuver it correctly, there's no reason to power control her. Chavez is another good option here, I would argue, because she also has this node that when she gains above 2 bars, she just consistently gains passive, real prowess buffs. Now, the thing is, you're going to have to get dealt insane block damage for the rest of the fight, but if you're keeping up with that SP2 heal with Chavez, you're completely benefiting from the attack increase, and you're also healing. So you could also go Chavez here if you want, but I definitely recommend like Doctor Doom, Idoom, Penny Parker, just characters that have high block proficiency, and you just kind of take your time doing it. Takes a long time, but you know, eventually you'll get him down. I guess with the Chavez method, if you can help it, you're going to not let her get 10 prowess buffs, because once she gets 10 prowess buffs, her specials are unblockable. So I would say build her up to like 5 or 6 prowesses if you can help. Like, I mean, if you can help it. She's going to want to throw that SP too. So if you get her to 2 bars and kind of hold block to let it charge every 2 seconds, get to like 4 or 5 or 6. I mean, if you're being daring, try to get to that 8 or 9, but you know, even like 3 or 4 buffs is really good for Chavez's attack increase. You know, if 3 or 4 makes it so that the block penetration isn't too crazy, and your attack increase is still amazing. So you can use Chavez, just build her up to around like 5 or 6. Or just high block proficiency champs. Idoom worked really well with us, but it kind of all depends on how you want to do it. This is one of the few nodes that you can use anyone for it. Next up is, hold on, I have my paper here, is Carnage Crawler, which pretty simple fight, but the matchups are going to be a little interesting. Once again, he has this weird node where above 2 bars he gets prowess, and then he's unblockable, but it doesn't matter because it's Nightcrawler specials. So it's Nightcrawler specials, and I think he gains buffs like Carnage. Like, I don't really know about the Carnage aspect of this, but all you have to know is that he evades like Nightcrawler, and his specials are like Nightcrawler. So who the hell cares what he has from Carnage? As you can see here, it does have poison vulnerability, and then the big thing is your regen rate is reduced by 200%. So those of you that watched, we ended up going in with I-Bomb because you're gonna have to switch this character. I definitely recommend going this route, you know, not a slow champ route, because if you go in with a poison, you're gonna be able to stop this other node where every time you make contact with them, they're gonna shock you, and then you pretty much just die. You can't shock him because he regens all of it. So you need a poison champ that can, you know, try to handle the rest of the stuff that's going on. So we went in with I-Bomb here. And what you do is you have to manually switch Nightcrawler, so when he dashes back, you dash into his block. You know, slow down a 4-hit combo into his block, and hopefully if he's, you know, generous enough to not evade, you'll switch him into swashbuckling mode, and then he'll never evade for the rest of the fight, as long as you don't stupidly switch him back. The reason why I-Bomb and, like, Abomination, like, I'm talking OG Abomination, the only reason why these champs are kind of more ideal for a fight like this, I would definitely recommend using I-Bomb for this fight specifically. I wouldn't use him for the Weapon X unless you have I-Bomb and Abomination. The reason why Abomination's really good, because, I mean, someone has to have him ranked up or something like that. Back if they have, like, an OG account, you gotta have him, because he was amazing. For Battlegrounds and stuff, because he just poisoned for fun. When you're hitting into their block to switch them into swashbuckling mode, you're going to be inflicting poisons while you're doing that. You know, I do have a couple other counters here. You have Diablo, you have Scorpion, you have other champs that do poison. The problem is, when you hit into them, when you're going to be hitting into their block to switch them anyway, you're not going to be doing any debuffs. So eventually when you do switch them to swashbuckling, you still got to deal with the shock a little bit. For someone like Scorpion, it doesn't matter because you're going to be immune to shock. So it won't matter too much. I do believe, though, that the two Abominations are the best option here, because while you're switching them, you know, while you're switching him into swashbuckling, you're going to be doing poisons through his block, because they do poisons just by making contact, not by hitting them. So I do think any one of the Abominations is a good idea. Scorpion, obviously amazing because he's immune, but he's so valuable, like, I would recommend not using him on this fight. We actually save him for a fight that's much later in the road, you guys will see. But yeah, if you have a handle on everything else, yeah. So this is definitely a good idea. I definitely recommend I-Bomb or just OG Abomination just to save your other really good chance for her. Next up is Spider Witch, which was a fight that I was worried about, like, as I was going into it. I think the big thing that was bothering me was this one, Special Chaos Inversion. At the start of their specials and the end of their specials, you are inverted just for the length of the special itself. Now, I recommend, it sounds stupid, I try to explain it to people that play the game. When she has a bar, dash back to gain distance and stare at your top left of the screen. Once you see a red debuff on you, doesn't matter what it is, don't look at it long enough to figure out what it is. Just as soon as you see something red pop up on your left hand side, you know you're inverted, and then immediately dash forward to dash back. It sounds stupid and it sounds hard to explain, but it's really that simple. As soon as she has a bar, you're going to dash back, and then you're just going to stare at the top left of the screen. Doesn't matter what's going on during the fight. I mean, obviously you can use your peripherals if she's going to dash in, but, like, prioritize the bottom of your life bar. And as soon as you see that little red circle pop up, just dash forward, because you're inverted, and it works every single time. It worked when we fought her. Now, for a fight like this, it is Spider-Gwen and Scarlet Witch. Now, they both have the worst parts of each character. For the Spider-Gwen part, they have the evade, and yeah, I think it's just the evade, and then the increased damage for every evade charge like Spider-Gwen gets. So it's definitely a mess. And then on the Scarlet Witch side, has Scarlet Witch's specials and inflicts debuffs every time you crit. So those of you that play against Scarlet Witch all the time, you know that the poison debuff is a big thing when you're fighting her. But for some reason, when we use her, never do a poison. But I guess that's just how the game is. There's a lot of people you can use here. We used, well, I used, but I mean, I count us as a unit, so we all used them. We used Quicksilver. I did like Quicksilver a lot. He had the built-in slow to deal with the Spider-Gwen part. And his whiplashes do insane damage, specifically against Mystics, so big nuke against him too. The only thing I was worried about is like a 8-9 hit combo. How many poisons am I going to get? And surprisingly, not saying this is going to happen for everyone, we didn't really get that many poisons. Pretty much handled it pretty well. I think we got like 2 poisons. But the big thing is that I overlooked itself was Staggering Beauty. When you're close to the defender, they do give the stagger debuff. I guess they did that for just in case Scarlet Witch gives you buffs. they could take it away, which I guess I don't really care about. It's not that big of a deal. But you actually, these are real debuffs, so you will power regen from them, and you will power regen more from them the more staggers you have. So I think there's a couple of fights where you'll literally have like 4 or 5 staggers, and you'll just be healing for like 1,000. Like, it's amazing. So you'll be dealt something, and it won't even matter too much. So I do think there's a couple of fights that can go this way. You can, I do believe you need a slow champ. I don't recommend using anyone else. You can use obviously Quicksilver. Silk is really good, but Silk has to be awake to get this to get the slow. So if you don't have that, then it's a problem. Overseer is another good option here. He's poison immune, and once you get the 7 concussions, it's a 70% chance for abilities not to come out. If you're still nervous about it, don't do 5-hit combos. Do 4-hit combos and dash back, and just kind of deal with that. And also, what we found out from a previous fight is every time something happens to Overseer that he's immune to, he gains a charge, which is one of the cosmic charges. So you'll be able to get to 6 pretty well if the RNG is bad and you get a ton of poisons. So you'll actually be able to build him up pretty well and pretty fast too. So I do think he's a good option, and you could also go the other route. You can use Red Goblin or Anti-Venom. Anti-Venom's another really good option. They're both champs that stop Spider-Verse champs from evading. Now, I know most of you are going to want to use like someone like Venom then, but the unfortunate part is I went into this fight, but like where it is in the story mode, and I used Venom just to see, and she takes away that symbiosis buff. I don't know how she does it, but she does. So there is a way for her to get rid of those buffs. I mean, the staggering alone should be annoying, but I think she herself has something in her kit that can take it away. Maybe it was because I got hit, but I don't know. And then we stopped changing her evade. She is classified and tagged as a Spider-Verse champ. I already checked that. So you can use Anti-Venom or Red Goblin. I do recommend Anti-Venom just because he's a science, so you can deal with a lot more, and he's also poison immune. So Anti-Venom might like low-key beat the MVP for this fight. Next up, we do have Ice Phoenix, which, to be honest with you, anyone can do this fight. There's really nothing to it besides you get rooted and power gain SP1. So if you don't know how to dex Iceman's SP1, I would definitely recommend practicing, because that's a bigger issue. Now, we went in with Warlock because he's Cold Snap immune. You know, if you have the ability to, I would definitely use a Cold Snap champ that's immune, because she does start the fight with it. I don't know what she gets from Phoenix's side. She might get the Phoenix immortality thing, but she didn't get that when we fought her, so I don't know what she has on Phoenix's side. But it's not going to matter. She has Iceman specials, and she has a Cold Snap. She even has Iceman's animations, to be honest with you. So I don't know what she has of Phoenix, but it doesn't matter. The biggest problem with this fight is probably the rooted. It's not the end of the world. You know, you get rooted for 4 seconds, but who cares? The big thing is the power gain to SP1. You gotta land those dexes off every time. If you, like I said, if you have a problem with Iceman's SP1, that's definitely something you need to practice, because this fight is filled with them. You can use Warlock, you can use Sasquatch, you can use Mephisto, just anyone that's really immune to Cold Snap. You can't purify the debuffs because they gain a bar of power, but it's not really like anything crazy. You're only going to be purifying the one Cold Snap in the beginning of the game, so it's like, who cares? As long as you don't keep getting hit with the SP1 and then purifying that cold. I can't even think of a situation where you would be doing that. But I think it's just easy to go Cold Snap immune here. Mephisto, Sasquatch. You could even use Iceman if you want, or Warlock. Just anyone that's Cold Snap immune. But you can use anyone for that fight. I don't think the Cold Snap is strong enough to kill someone. Like, we'll check here actually. It does 10,000 damage, so it won't kill you. That's all we can get from it. Now, this is one of the fights that I really don't have a lot of counters for. I'm sorry. I was looking at it, and like, obviously I'm a genius when it came to the person I used for this. I used Star-Lord for it because it's a ramp-up character. Once you get to like the 350, 380 hit range with the Awakening, you're just bulldozing through her health in the 20 seconds. I am going to warn you, you will have to get to about 400 hits to kill her. I don't recommend using the SP3 or the SP2. Raw hits only if you guys didn't watch the live stream. Because the SP3 and the SP2 use his gun, and his gun has 4 different things that can happen. It can heal block you, it can armor break you, it can hold on, it's armor break, heal block, shock, and oh man, I'm having a brain fart. I don't know what the other one was, but either way, if you get that 25% chance that it gets the Jesus, what is happening right now? If you have a 25% chance to gain the shock, she's going to heal from it. She's going to heal from it, and she gets 100% of a bar power over 10 seconds. The big thing with it is we don't know how long the shock lasts for. It doesn't last for over 10 seconds. So all you're going to be doing is giving her a bar. It's not the end of the world. Like, it's definitely something you can come back from because she doesn't have an SP3. So it doesn't matter if she gains 100% of bar power to give her a SP3, or if she has an SP1 and it gives her an SP2. The only thing that I would say for this fight is it's Hyperion specials with no SP3. I had like a big worry during the live stream because I saw a third special has been activated, but it might have just been the regular node for the whole thing, because I'm like, she doesn't have an SP3, but did they give her one for this? She does not have an SP3. It's Hyperion's fights, Hyperion specials, and I would recommend not using any specials with Star-Lord and just using raw power. You don't have to do that, because what happens is it's this node every 20 seconds, they just instantly heal all their health back. But funny enough, it says an incinerate and a shock prevent it, but it has high energy diet, so she's just going to be healing from that. So I guess it does stop her from getting the health back, but you're trading in one bad node for another bad node. It's not worth it. But there is better options here if you don't feel like playing perfect with Star-Lord or you want to end the fight relatively quickly. Warlock and Mysterio work here pretty well. When Warlock infects her, he actually stops the regen from coming out. And also Mysterio has a passive heal block built into his kit, so he stops it as well. The problem is, if you're using Warlock for Ice Phoenix, you won't have him, but I would, if you happen to have a 7-star and a 6-star, this is definitely the 2 fights that you want to do it for. But as I said, you can pretty much use anyone on Ice Phoenix, so it doesn't matter. Next up is Mole Man, which there's like the way they want you to fight him with the nodes, and then there's you can do kind of your own thing. As you can see here, he does have bleed vulnerability, and he has fight or flight. Now the thing with fight or flight is, if you're close to him, he gains the unstoppable, and if you're far away from him, you gain the unstoppable. Now there's 2 ways to go about this. It does have foresight, so this is another ghost fight if you want to do that. When he gains an unstoppable, he goes into frenzy mode. That's how Mole Man works. Usually you have to hold block, and then when they hit into you and you gain the unstoppable, he goes into frenzy. This node puts him in frenzy because he's gaining the unstoppable buff. So you can literally use anyone you want here. You could use a bleed champ. APOC's a good option here because then you don't even have to worry about the fight or flight to give him anything. You can just hit him regular and the debuffs don't get taken away. So you can play him like that. We went in with Storm X. I do believe she's just the MVP. We completely got rid of the bleed vulnerability. It wasn't a big deal to us, and we just threw. I keep saying us, but like us, like as a unit, like because we all watched and we all participated. It wasn't just me that completed it. It was all the people that were watching. But the SP1 has built-in slow, and you're going to be doing the cold snap damage. Like, it's just something to go about it. And also, she does have the ability to turn the stuns into passive stuns when they get purified. But for some reason, he wasn't shrugging off any of our stun, which is weird. Like I said, Foresight's a big thing, but you don't need it here. You can definitely get it done. You can use APOC. You can use Domino for the crit bleeds. With the Domino route, you'd probably have to give him fight or flight so we can turn into frenzy mode, and then you just throw that SP2. And if you get a crit bleed, I mean, I can only imagine how much that bleed's going to do. But yeah, 3 solid options. But you can, I would say, comfortably, you pretty much use anyone here. Any bleed champ, if you want to turn him into frenzy mode on purpose, yeah, you should be fine. Definitely not a fight to worry about. Next up is Mag, which has all these nodes, but the real node that you only have to worry about is the Spite node. I mean, I guess if depending on how good you are at the game, or if you just don't care, this Maul to the Flame node could get annoying. It has the ability, every time you hit them, he gains 1 charge, and once he has 10 and he uses a special, he gets rid of 10 fervor charges, and he increases his attack rating by 10%. 10% attack increase is nothing, and they kind of punish you if you don't want to play Moth to a Flame. Instead, he does 50% of his attack as degen to you over 10 seconds. Definitely want to give him Moth to a Flame. There's no reason to get dealt damage, especially over a 10% attack increase. I guess the idea is here, if you don't dex the SP2, you'll die, but it's just, I would not waste my time playing Moth to a Flame to give him 0 charges so that you die. The big one is Spite here, so I would say any buff immunes work. If you happen to watch the stream, we used Titania for this. Titania, Spidey, Red Guardian. Any type of buff immune. I do think Silk would work as well, because she's immune to the dexterity buff, so I think she would work as well, because you're not going to be able to gain any other buffs, because the Fury itself is passive. So I mean, I think even she works. I would be careful though, because some nodes consider relic buffs as real buffs and relic debuffs as real debuffs, and some nodes don't consider them buffs and debuffs. So it's kind of a tough thing to figure out. I would just recommend using an immune champ, and if you're going to go in with a relic, I think the best one is probably the Spidey 2099 relic, because you can run the relic that when they're immune to something, they put a physical vulnerability onto the defender. I wouldn't use anything that gives you a buff just in case, but I mean, it's not the end of the world. He is very SP2 happy, so if you happen to throw a relic and he has Spite active for that relic buff, just wait it out and bait out that SP2 if you know how to dex it. It's really easy to dex when you're in his face, and it's a little annoying when you're across the board. When you're in the middle of the board, it's probably the hardest. You got to wait like a second and a half to dash back. It's a weird special to dex, but I would say anyone buff immune here is really good. Don't let the Moth to a Flame scare you. There's literally nothing to it. Next up is MODOK, which kind of has like very like a small list of counters. Last minute audible, like my cousin helped me out with it. We ended up going in with Mole Man because Mole Man has the built-in true accuracy to stop the auto blocks from coming out, but because he got nerfed, he doesn't have it after 10. So what you have to do is never block attacks, because this node, when you block an attack, it gives you Disorient, which, if you remember, I think the Red Hulk had it in the beginning of the run. He has it, so it's the same exact node. You don't have to worry about the Spectre. You know, the aggressive actually helps you, which we'll get to in a second. We ended up using Mole Man here because of the built-in true accuracy, and if you get dealt the Disorient, you do shrug it off. But I definitely would not recommend blocking anything. Like, just go in for intercepts. You're going to win the intercept almost every time, and especially with him not being able to auto block you, you're able to just do a 4-hit combo, dash back, dash in, dash back, dash in, dash back, and then as long as you can dash back and dex the SP1 consistently, there is no way you can run this out, especially if you have a relic on him. Like, it's even easier. But you don't have to use him. You can use Herc here if you happen to have Herc, because his SP1 stops auto block. You could play the Stampede node, but I'm telling you, there's no reason to. There's literally no reason to. Like, just bypass his auto block and just go to town on him. Well, does his SP1 stop auto block? Yeah, I would. Yeah. What am I doing? And then Red Mag is a really good option here because metal champs can't auto block him. So there's just another reason. I don't think Mag is the best option here though, because it's a 70% chance, yes, but there is a chance you can get that Disorient, and then you'll have to dash back and hold block to get rid of it. It just delays your game. And you're going to be doing a lot of parry heavying, so there's no, I don't think you should waste your Magneto here. I definitely think Mole Man's the counter, especially when you're doing 4-hit combos and dashing in for intercepts. Like, it's just so easy to pull off. Him himself, he's aggressive, and the node itself gives him an aggressive, so it's definitely an ideal counter here. Next up is Guardian. Guardian's pretty good here. The aggressive armor is annoying. I think the the way that the fight is structured is that he gains aggressive armor. He doesn't take any damage from anything other than specials, but he himself, he auto blocks specials. So you need a champ that can either bypass auto block or someone that has unblockable specials. There is a couple of options that you can go for here. Gladiator was our MVP because I use him a lot, and I definitely like the champ a lot. Because after he has, I believe it's 10 confidence or maybe 15 confidence, his specials become unblockable after you hit into the heavy to give them the intimidate. It gives you an unblockable buff that you can pause during specials. So if you guys turn to that fight during the live stream, you're going to see that we nail him with a bunch of specials because we're unblockable. And we're consistently being aggressive, so the aggressive armor doesn't come in either. But like I said, there is a couple people you can use here. Herc is really good again. His SP1 stops auto block, so he's a good option. Idoom's another good option here too, though, because his SP2 is unblockable. The only problem is your main damage source is shocks. So I think the burst damage is still going to be really good. He does have insane energy resistance, so you're not going to be doing crazy damage with him. But you'll definitely get him down with 400% increased attack on that SP2. So I definitely, if you have no other options, I would definitely use him. But Gladiator murdered this fight. After that, we do have White Mag, which was one of the fights that you can literally use anyone on him. Like there was no set thing here. You can't use any buff immunes, and I wouldn't recommend using any metal champs because I'm sure he'll turn off these nodes as well. So there's no reason to use any metal or buff immune. I ended up going in with Havoc. I just thought, as you can see here, while the iron is hot, when you hit into his when you hit him against the wall, every time you hit him, like not even make contact, like when you hit him and his back hits the wall, you gain 1 prowess. And the prowess increases your special attack by 20%. And as you can see here, the defender takes 90% reduced damage when he's hit with a special that doesn't have a prowess. So the only way to do real damage to him is to have prowesses. Of course, you can use champs that get prowess themselves, but the node itself is literally giving you a prowess. So you can use anyone you want here. Like, literally, there's no wrong answer besides buff immune and metal. You can literally use anyone. Like we have Morbius works here, even though he has like a bleed. He's bleed immune, but I think Morbius still does the insane, like the good damage with his SP2. Like he'll get him down with the prowesses and stuff. He just won't be able to do the lifesteal with the SP2 or just the crazy amount of bleeds with the SP1. So like this was just kind of like a joke character. You could use Morbius here. We used Havoc. Dust is a really good option here. Hulk, Chavez, Werewolf by Night. Just anyone that just lays into people with their specials. On top of the prowesses from this, like, they're definitely a good option here. Next up is Tigra, which literally the running joke of this was I could have one-shot this character with Sandman and it would have been amazing. But I got aggressive and I thought I could be funny and I got greedy. And we ended up getting clipped at the end and dying. It was very upsetting. The main nodes, Prey on the Weak and Heavy Assault. These are the 2 nodes that you should be working at. The Wombo combo isn't a problem. If you want to still read it. He takes your combo meter when they throw a special, and it gives them special attack increase. You can do damage to them like they do damage to you. Like there's no reason to though. Like it's don't read that node. But Heavy Assault and Prey on the Weak is the big thing. Prey on the Weak is every time a buff ends to get 5% of their max power, not a bar of power, max power. So it's a decent amount of power. And Heavy Assault. So I don't know about you guys, but when I see those 2 nodes together, I think of Sandman. I think Sandman's amazing. His SP1 does insane petrifies, and his main kit is throwing into is doing heavies in the rooted. But we're gonna find out in a second why it was the wrong idea to do that. It worked, but not really. Heavy Assault also makes the defender unstoppable during their heavies. So with someone like Sandman that has to slam them with heavies and they're rooted, and the computer automatically throws their heavies, she's unstoppable. So she's tanking through your heavy. But the good news is you're unstoppable too. So you actually win that exchange, just so you know. You win that exchange. It's very easy. My problem was, if you guys were to tune in to watch it, was I threw that second heavy too late. So her heavy was still going with the stupid claws, and I hit the second hit of my heavy, but she was still unstoppable for that second hit, so she slammed me with the heavy, and then went in and threw another heavy, and I died. I was so mad. She was literally on like 8% health. It was so upsetting. But the main thing here is, back to the main thing. Sandman was a good option because he stopped prey on the weak, and his main kit is heavies. Also, if you have him awake, he gains heavy proficiencies, which increases the damage of his heavies when he lands a heavy. So it's like, there's no reason not to use Sandman here because he's literally made for a node like this. But if you don't have him ranked up, Human Torch is a really good option too because, I mean, he just melts any Mystic. But with Flame On and you parry heavy, that heavy, that Incinerate from the heavy is also 500% increased. So you're burning him to death. So Human Torch is an amazing option. Eye Bomb's another good option too. Like, just really anyone that, I mean, literally anyone. You just hit him with a heavy. It doesn't matter. The Prey on the Weak might be a little bit of an issue. The reason why we went Eye Bomb too is because the SP1 has a Petrify. So you can use Champs to get rid of the Prey of the Weak. I feel like sometimes she's a little stingy on that special. She have that SP2, but she might not throw it. So, like, there is a couple times that'll happen. So maybe it's best to use someone to reverse power gain. But the main thing is you can literally use anyone and hit her with that heavy. I mean, I'm sure even, like, Archangel works here, too. It doesn't even matter too much. Next up is Venom the Duck, which was probably one of the longer fights. The main thing is crit me with your best shot. They don't take any damage unless the hit is a crit. And Critical Eye is annoying. Every time you land a critical hit, he gets an unblockable charge, which makes any hit he does be unblockable. Whether it hits or not, it'll go away. So, like, if he throws his special with, like, the tentacle and he hits it, I think it's like a 4-hit SP1 or maybe a 3-hit one. He literally uses 3 or 4 unblockable charges for it. They don't have to hit. They just have to, like, just be a hit that happens. You can throw a light into the air and use a charge. So the main thing is he's unblockable the entire fight. There's no way around it, really. You're just going to kind of have to deal with it. I do think you can get rid of it, though, if you intercept him. When the defender attack, regardless of whether the attack, intercepting the defender removes all unblockable charges. So if you intercept him, he actually gives you a passive precision for each unblockable charge, which increases your crit rating by 20%. So eventually, like, if you have multiple unblockable charges on him and you intercept, eventually you basically get, like, a guaranteed crit. We went with Hitmonkey here because Hitmonkey he already has guaranteed crits. But it also has critical setup, which means if you end the combo in the same hit, and then you, in the next combo, you end the combo with that, you'll actually crit. That itself is a guaranteed crit, too. So I feel like they give you a lot of chances to crit. You don't have to use guaranteed crit champs. You can end combos in the same way. If you get lucky enough to get a couple of crits, you can intercept, and then it gives you all those precisions that make you basically guaranteed crit as long as you have 5 or more crit rating precision charges. They're passive, so there's no way that you can't get them. You could run like a buff immune here if you wanted to, but there's really no wrong answers for Venom the Duck. I just wanted to use Hitmonkey just because he already has guaranteed crits, but this is one of the fights you can literally use anyone. I said Morbius works here too again, because he does the bleeds, so he'll be doing bleed damage, and that first incoming is a guaranteed crit in itself. So you should be doing very well. And if that SP2 crits, if you pair it with the passive precision buffs, that SP2 lifesteal is going to be pretty big. So, like, he's another good option too. But, like, it's just, you kind of just throw Morbius on there just to show you guys that anyone can anyone can do the fight. Now, this is probably the hardest fight, just because I picked the wrong champ for it. As you can see, it's a Hitmonkey with Life Cycle and Heavy Assault. Heavy Assault's really good because it gives you 500% attack. The only problem is you're going to constantly have to knock him down to increase the Life Cycle timer. Not a big deal. But every time you knock Hitmonkey down, he gets all of his stuff. That's not the problem here. The problem here is when you kill him when he has Life Cycle up, and he gains like 11% health. And the problem is your heavy does more than 11% health. So you're constantly just hitting him with a heavy to knock him down. And then he goes back to 11% health, and he just keeps going back to 11% health. So what you need to do, I recommend, we went in with Domino, which was not the right option here. I mean, I didn't have any boosts running, but it doesn't matter. You don't have to use boosts for this. I just wanted to use boosts because I wanted to end the live stream in a relatively quick fashion so that my phone wouldn't die, because I need to figure out how to charge my phone. But where we went wrong was, hold on, I need to figure out where they are. Any champs that do big damage on their SP3, Domino was not the right option here. I thought her SP3 did a lot more damage, but it does not. You can use Havoc, Bishop, APOC, Dust, just any, I mean, they don't have to be mutants in essence, but you can literally use anyone that has the ability to, what is it? Anyone that does have big damage on their SP3s. What you're going to want to do is, you know, if you get into the unfortunate cycle of him being at 11% health, you hit him with a heavy and he goes back to 11, try to use a champ that's going to take that 11% out with that SP3. Dust is a good option because she throws at SP3. If that doesn't already kill because she's a tank, you immediately throw an SP2. You can even throw it probably into his block and you'll still hit him. Everyone knows Havoc's SP3 does an insane amount of damage. So there is champs you can use for this. You just have to figure it out. And also with Heavy Assault, Havoc's Heavy does a lot of damage with the plasma feedback. So he's another good option too. We just didn't have him obviously because we used them on White Mag. Next up is Punisher 2099, which only has 2 nodes. Surge Protector, which is always a problem on Punisher, is when he gets dealt a basic attack, he gets a little passive surge charge, which basically refunds him some power when he throws a special. Which basically means you're just blocking hits the entire game. You're just blocking hits the entire game. It's whatever though. We went in, this is the fight that I recommend using Magneto on because he just shuts everything down. I mean, you're still going to get the Surge Protector, but you can infinitely block these specials pretty much because you have a certain % chance to perfect block everything, and there's times we block the SP1. And I mean, if you're dexing the last like 2 or 3 hits on top of blocking the rest of it, you pretty much perfect block like 95% of the special. So he's definitely the right way to go. Unfortunately, you're not able to build him up because it's every time he has a bar of power, you have a bar of power, and then when he has an SP2, you have an SP2. But then when he throws a special, you get power drain back to 0. So there's never an interaction where you're able to build to that SP3. So we just kind of throw him with a couple of SP1s here. I didn't want to throw the SP2 at him just because it's just kind of hard to build them up. So what you're going to do is you're just going to parry heavy. You can duplicate the buffs if you want. Or you can just keep hitting with regular heavies to gain the permanent ones, and then you duplicate that and hit him with an SP1. It's not going to do crazy damage. I think it ended up ticking for like 800 bleed, and then the shrapnel bleed came out, and it wasn't bad. It was only 2 bleeds. But I wouldn't hit him with anything else. Just play it safe. You're going to win because you're perfect blocking everything, especially if you know how to dex the SP1, like the last like couple hits of it. And it should be a fairly easy fight. Mag's a good option here. Archangel works. I-Bomb's another good option here because when I-Bomb blocks an attack, he does put weaknesses on. So you'll be able to, eventually, like towards the end of the SP1, you're going to be literally getting dealt like 1 damage, 2 damage because of the amount of hits it is. So the weaknesses are going to stack up and you're going to be dealt no damage. So I do think I-Bomb's a little underrated here. But yeah, doesn't really matter too much. I think Archangel could work too. You'll have to block a few hits, but once you get those neurotoxins up, you're not really doing it to turn off any of the nodes. It's more of you're doing it to nuke them in time. I don't think those nodes can be turned off because Mag didn't turn them off 1 time when I fought him. So I don't think there's a way to go around it. So I definitely believe I-Bomb, Mag, Archangel. This is definitely the fight to use Mag on because all the other fights can be used by like 10 other people. They don't have to be used by Mag. You know, maybe if you don't have a Mole Man ranked up, or you know, or you already used Herc, Mag would work here. But then you got to understand that you're going to have a tougher time with the Punisher unless you have like I-Bomb, which you should have I-Bomb, but you probably already used them already, so it's kind of tough. This kind of just boils down to roster size. You know, that's why I'm trying to give multiple options for fights, you know, because you know sometimes you don't realize that certain fights can be done with anyone, you know, stuff like that. Next up, we do have Nova. Now, the thing about this node is it's kind of interesting because the way that this node is built is he kind of hurts himself. You guys are going to see here he has burnout, so every time he activates a special and then you dex it, he gets dealt. He does like a burnout charge to himself. As you can see, he gets a ton of power gain. It's a bunch of other stuff. So the main thing with burnout, though, is when he throws that special and you dex, he gains a burnout charge, which I think increases the attack of his special or something like that. But once he gets 10 burnout charges, he in itself, as it says here, 10 are removed, the defender is passively power locked, right? So the node itself power locks him. Combine that with supercharge, and he tries to gain power, and then instead it will it'll power lock him. And then time to strike happens, where whenever they try to gain health while healed locked or power while power locked, they get dealt a degen that does 100% of your attack for 3 seconds. So as you can see, like, the node's built in like a domino chain reaction here, where you can pretty much use anyone here. As long as you can keep baiting out that SP1. I think the SP1 alone is like four dexes with the beam, and then if you can dex the charge, that's 5. That basically means 2 SP1s power locks him. So you can pretty much use anyone here if he's pretty good with, if you know how to dex the SP2, that's also another plus. We went in with Wiccan. We used our 6-star Wiccan here, while we use the 7-star Wiccan for the Vision Arcus. Any champ works. You can use any neutralized champ to get rid of all the rest of the buffs that he gets. You could also try to get rid of that supercharge. If you don't have burnout activated, it is ideal to try to get rid of the supercharge because it is a big power gain. Kind of things have to work together. Sometimes just with how things line up with your burnout charges, you're not able to get rid of that supercharge, and then that kind of hurts, especially when he's gaining power when he's dashing in with his medium. So it's definitely a chain reaction that you kind of have to be on top of. Any neutralized champ works here. You can use Rintra, you can use Tigra, you can use Wiccan, or any nullified champ. You can use Symbiote Supreme as well to stack up the staggers. If things get out of hand, you can just throw that SP3 and then get rid of any buff that he has. So there's definitely multiple ways to go about this fight, and I do believe it's made that you can kind of use any champ. So yeah, definitely a good idea. Next up is I-Bomb, which is probably one of my least favorite nodes in the entire game, Meltdown. It's a 30-second timer that goes around, and when you throw a special, it gets dealt to the other person minus 5 seconds. So, for example, it starts on I-Bomb, I believe, or it's the attack. Oh, it's the attack. So you get started with it. 30-second timer goes away. If you're able to land a special before the 30 seconds goes away, it's not an encroaching thing where like the timer has to go away as you throw the special. It's just throwing it at any point. You throw the special and it gets transmitted into I-Bomb, and it's now minus 5 seconds. It's now 25 seconds. It goes back to start. He's going to throw his special. It's going to go back to you. It's 20 seconds. And then, you do it again. It's 15. Then he does it again. It's 10. Then you do it again. It's 5. So there's multiple ways to go about this fight. It's annoying, especially when they add on the node Hurt Locker. Hurt Locker, you can't do the same special twice, or else you get dealt like a burst of direct damage. The reason why I don't believe you should just power through Hurt Locker is because you're probably going to mess up 1 or 2 times this fight with Meltdown. You're probably going to get dealt some burst damage. If you get dealt 50% damage with Hurt Locker, you're only going to be able to last for like maybe 1 Meltdown max. But if you have full health, you can last for I think 2, maybe 3 Meltdowns, depending on how much damage you're getting dealt. Definitely 2 Meltdowns, but probably not that third one, depending on how much damage you're taking through blocked and stuff like that. So I definitely would recommend like dealing with Hurt Locker. So the first time it's 30 seconds, so I would definitely try to throw the SP1 when you have like a bar and a half. And then it's going to go on him. He's probably going to immediately throw his special. Then you have 25 seconds to get to 2 bars. Try to get 2 1/4 if you have time. Throw the SP2 and then deal the SP1. You got to deal with it. Sometimes the lineup isn't going to work. I'm going to be honest with you. This node can be annoying sometimes. It'll get dealt back to you and you'll get the damage, and it sucks. Trust me. I definitely know. But we ended up using Overseer for this fight. The reason why I used Overseer is because he has a long special. So the thing with that is there is a couple times where, once it gets down to the 10 second timer for Meltdown, you're going to want to throw a special that has a long special animation. So for example, Overseer's SP1 has a long animation. He hits him, then he teleports back, then he gets ready, then he dashes in. That in itself is probably about 4 to 5 seconds. So for example, if you have 20 seconds on your Meltdown timer and you throw that SP1 and he has 15 seconds, the timer starts as soon as you give it back to him. So, that special one's done.
he's already at 10 seconds with the meltdown timer. So then you do a double medium. Now he's at 8 seconds, maybe 7 seconds. Then you do a 5-hit combo, maybe hold block if you need to. If not, then you're good. Hold block. Then the meltdown timer expires on him. The annoying part of it is when the meltdown timer expires on him, it doesn't do any damage. But when it expires on you, it does a crazy amount of damage. Not in the sense that it doesn't do any damage, just you can tell the difference, is what I'm saying. I think it gets out like 45% of your damage. Like, I think it's like you get down like 45% of your health. Like, it's a lot. So I definitely would recommend using someone with like long specials. We used Overseer. I do think he was a good option. Also, by the fact that every time you get dealt a poison or just anything that Overseer is immune to, you gain a Cosmic Charge. So you actually build up to that 6 Cosmic Charge almost immediately, which means you have insane burst damage. Like, you're stacking up the concussions. Like, it's just, I feel like Overseer is definitely the MVP for the fight, for the long special animations, constantly building up the Cosmic Charge, so you're doing big burst damage on top of it, and you're building up your concussions. So just overall, like, it's an amazing fight for him. I do recommend using him just because of the long specials, and just, he's just an animal. Now, if you don't have Overseer, or you just said, screw it, I'm going to play it how I want, there is a couple other options. Hulk is another good option because he does the really long stun on his heavy, and I believe on the SP1 when he has enough gamma charge, which I think the stun on like a fully ramped up Hulk is already in itself like 25 seconds. So as long as the meltdown has been exchanged one time or 2 times max, he's going to get dealt that meltdown, which means it's going to give you enough time to build up to whatever special you need next, whether it's SP1 or SP2. And also, while they're stunned, they have reduced combat power rate, so you can build to that SP2 comfortably, even if he has like a bar and a half, because of the reduced defensive combat power ability. Like, Hulk's another good option. Gulk is another good option here too. I don't know if he gets Face Me from Meltdown. It's not really the point of it. It's more of the SP1 has like a 60 or 70% chance to stun, so you can use that SP1 to constantly keep refreshing it. If you need a stun, the SP1 unfortunately is a very quick special for Gulk, but paired with that stun, it ends up being actually a pretty long animation. The SP2 is another really good option too, because that is a relatively long special with a big stun. It's a double medium and a 5-hit combo stun. So he's another good option too. Kindred's another good option because he's poison immune, and his specials are pretty long, and his SP2 does a power drain. So you're actually relatively able to control his power, because a lot of times when you throw your special to gain Meltdown, he already has a bar and he gets up and throws his immediately, so it gets right back onto you with 10 seconds less on it. So you're going to want to use a character that can sometimes power drain, maybe power lock, stun, long animation, something like that. Or if you want to just take the L, you can use I-Bomb on this fight as well. Now, I-Bomb isn't the best option against I-Bomb because they still gain the poison debuffs or whatever. So when they get 10 on themselves, it actually triggers the other I-Bomb's Acid Wash. I'm not saying it's a good idea, but if you have them and you're willing to die two, 3 times, every time that I-Bomb throws his SP1, he's going to gain 10 poison, so he's going to die immediately. There's no way to stop yourself from not getting the Acid Wash. I mean, yeah, obviously you can not throw the SP1, but you also got to remember that you're going to be getting dealt poisons when you hit him, and then if he throws his SP2, like, it's even worse. Like, it's not an ideal way to do it. But if you're willing to take the L a few times on this hot potato node, you can just use your I-Bomb and literally just stand there and let this I-Bomb throw his SP1s and just die. Let himself just die. So he's another decent option, but I would definitely say in terms of reliability, I would say Hulk is really good if you can build them up correctly. Overseer is really good. Kindred's really good. And then if no one else, I mean Gulk too. And then if no one else, I would say I-Bomb to just let him acid wash himself to death. But you will die. You're not soloing that fight. There's no way. Next up is Man-Thing, which you don't gotta tell me. I got absolutely robbed by this fight. Robbed, like completely robbed. The big thing, it has Flare combined with Power Shield, so you're not able to take full advantage of the 300% attack rating. So you're basically just getting degen 100% of your max health over the course of 60 seconds. Now here's the thing. It's also affected by class relationships, so I do believe that means if you're running a science, you won't die by the degen, you'll just be very low on health. But don't quote me, I'm not sure. I think the fact that it says it's affected by class relationships means it won't kill you if you're a science, and it also means that it probably kills you faster if you're a cosmic, but who knows. He does have power shield, so he only takes damage from specials. They're 400% increase on top of your 300. That's 700% increased special. High energy diet means you can't use anyone that does energy specials because he's going to regen most of it. It's a pain. It definitely is. The fun fact with this one is, though, if he has a pus pimple on you and then you go to hit him and he nullifies it, if you're running a poison immune already, he's going to instead just do an armor break to you, and you're going to willpower regen that armor break. So the thing with this node is, if you have any form of regen during the fight, doesn't matter if it's a willpower regen or regen buff, I don't think adrenaline is considered, but you're able to bypass the flare degen. It does 100% of your max health as direct damage over 60 seconds. So just think about it. If you were to regen at any point during that fight, your max health in essence was increased. So if you have 10,000 max health, obviously you wouldn't. The degen itself is going to do 10,000 damage. So if you were to regen 5,000 that fight, in essence your max health actually was 15,000. So you're actually going to end that degen with 5,000 health, whatever you regen. So if you can somehow get him to nullify a pus pimple to turn into an armor break for you to regen, you're golden. For some reason, he did not do that the first 2 times I fought him. He did not do that those 2 times. The first time I really needed it, I had like 3 pus pimples. Nothing. Nothing happened. I can't believe it. You can't even get hit with a special to nullify it because that's more damage. You're just going to die. So it's stupid. It's the stupidest thing. I would say poison immunes are good here, or buff immunes at the very minimum. Titania is good here because her Haymaker makes it so she takes no damage from the degen from Flare. So actually, you'll be able to outlive Flare just from the Haymaker in itself. Obviously, it's not the greatest idea because you're only going to be bypassing, I think Haymaker lasts 5 seconds. You're only going to be able to bypass 5 seconds worth of the degen, so you're not going to die, but you're going to be pretty low on health. If you're lucky enough, you're going to be able to get Haymaker twice. Maybe even 3 times, depending on how fast and how much the Awakening blesses you. So I wouldn't say it's a solid option, but she'll definitely outlive the Flare, which means after 60 seconds, there's going to be no degen, and then it's a very calm fight with you just throwing specials and living. Dust was a good option because she's poison immune, and if I happen to have gotten an armor break, I probably would have one-shotted him. Sandman's good because he's poison immune. No, like I said, if you can somehow get an armor break during that fight, you'll be golden. And Spidey 2099 is another good option too. He's going to die from the flare though, but the SP2 burst should be able to get you pretty high, because considering ruptures are physical. So he's another good option. I would definitely say if you're going to use someone, it's probably going to be Titania to outlive the degen. But if you don't have her, any other poison immune would work as well. I mean, I would say I-Bomb probably works really well too, because you'll be willpower regenning from the poisons in the beginning, so he'll probably work really well too. Next up is Void. The only real thing you need here is you need a ton of debuffs. So obviously it has Safeguard, which is Safeguard Void has always been an issue. I think even when he first came out, I think he came out with Safeguard. So like that's always been a node for him. But you can bypass Safeguard with this node. So when you knock him down when he has 6 debuffs, it does 500% of your attack as direct damage to him. But if you knock him down and he doesn't have 6 debuffs, he actually gets dealt, he actually does 50% of his attack to you, which is not good. Now, for those of you that watched, we took this down in 2 tries. We died the first time, which was annoying, but it seems like it was a fight that we were going to die anyway on. But I definitely did not play it as well as I could have. I think the big thing with this fight is you're going to want to use someone that does a ton of debuffs, and then you're able to immediately knock them down. Someone like Titania isn't going to work very well, because her debuffs don't last long. Someone like Spidey 29 is good, but his ruptures are kind of random on how they come, and then also when he builds to a special, they might burst and go away, whether he's awake or not. So it's not ideal to use those characters. What we ended up using was Scorpion. I do think Scorpion is relatively the best choice. Maybe not. You know what I mean? There is a couple people that are better than him, but I thought he was the best because if he turned into Poison mode, you did like a. I think the SP1 alone does 6 debuffs, but if you at least had 2 debuffs and you threw that SP1, it gave you 6 every time. You knock him down, and it deals I think 25,000 damage to him because it was 500% of Scorpion's attack. So it's a good way to get a good chunk down. Every time you get a bar, you throw the SP1, and you're good. The only thing with Void is you got to watch your combo timer. So the problem with the first run was I wasn't really watching and being mindful of the 10 hits. So I got dealt a lot of degen damage. And then the second time around, I watched the timer and I did really well. I mean, I still took like 70% of my health away to get that last like 50% down. So it's not a fight that I probably would have done in one try with Scorpion anyway. Maybe if he was higher rank. I think he was only rank 3. So maybe if he was like a rank 5 Scorpion, I could have got it done. But he definitely got it done. You know, you throw the SP1. I think the SP1 alone gives you 6 debuffs, but just to play it safe, you make sure you have at least 2 or 4 debuffs with the double mediums. And you throw that SP1, you do big damage. And as long as you can watch the timer relatively to get the 10 hits, you're golden. The problem is that timer is really quick. I don't know what's doing that, but like it's supposed to be like a slow timer to get the debuff. It was like that. Like it was quick. So you're going to get dealt degen damage. There's no way around it. He's a good option. Joe Fixit's another really good option because his SP1 does a ton of bleed debuffs. And it even... I mean, I guess there's a chance that the SP1 doesn't do all those bleed debuffs, but you could also manipulate his suits to start with a couple of debuffs. Like, I think if you have 2 different pairs, I think you do 2 disorients, which means you only need 4 bleeds to come out with the SP1. So, like, that's definitely more obtainable than just getting 5. It's only 1 more, but there is a couple of times that SP1 doesn't do a ton of bleed debuffs, and there's a couple of times where it does 14 bleed debuffs. So it's like, if you know how to manipulate Joe Fix, it'll be really easy. You throw that SP1, you do a ton of bleeds, and you know he'll get up, and then it'll be a ton of damage. So Joe Fix is another good option. Mole Man's another really good option because if you go into Frenzy mode, every single hit is a bleed, so he's really good too. Sandman's another really good option because his specials are loaded with debuffs. I think all of them do over 6 debuffs, especially the SP2. The SP2 does like 15 debuffs. So like there are other good options. And I think it's not more of to find a character that does all those debuffs. I think it's more of you still have to learn how to fight Void and learn the 10-hit combo. Like, it's still annoying. So I do think he's a good option. You can pretty much use anyone here. Next up is Platinum Pool, which very easy fight. Kind of a similar thing to Void, except obviously a lot more forgiving. He has the ability to purify all incoming debuffs, which means you can't use people like APOC. Well, I think it's maybe only APOC. You can't use APOC because you need these debuffs to be purified. If he's able to purify 10 debuffs in 30 seconds, he does a big degen to himself. If you're not able to do that and 30 seconds is up and you didn't purify 10 debuffs, he regens 25% of his health. So it's definitely very not forgiving if you don't do it. We went in with Titania. I do think personally she was the MVP for this fight just because of the amount of debuff she does. You don't need them to last long, you just need them to be placed. And the thing with Titania is as long as the debuff gets placed, doesn't matter if it gets purified immediately or not, you're able to still get your Fury. So you're still building her up comfortably. It's not really the end of the world. Now to mention, with her, even without her awakening, your combos are doing 4 debuffs every single time. Not to mention that the specials themselves probably already do 10 debuffs. I mean, the SP1 probably does like 6 or 7 debuffs, and the SP2 definitely does like almost 8 debuffs, 8 or 9 debuffs. So like I think the SP2 either does 10 or they're like right under 10, both the SP2 and the SP1. And that's without her awakening. We saved our 6-star Titania for this to get the duplication debuff, which made it a little bit easier. But to be honest, you have 30 seconds. You're going to gain 10 debuffs with Titania in 30 seconds. So she was definitely a good idea. And you know, you build up juke, and just overall it was amazing. She was a good option, but if you happen to use her, because I know I recommended her for a couple of fights, because I have a 7-star and a 6-star, so it was a little bit easier for me to kind of spread her out a little bit. Scorpion's another good option because he does a ton of debuffs. Dust, Joe Fixit, Silk, or Bishop. Bishop's another good option. Not only with Bishops just parrying, because you could pretty much use anyone. You could parry them 10 times, which will be a little bit annoying to do, and sometimes it doesn't really work out. But also Bishop's SP1 that does the incinerates by his aura. Like, you could do that too. So like, he's another really good option. Just anyone that does debuffs. I know Spider-Ham probably works really well for this. I'm not sure how frequent his debuffs are though. I don't know if it's they come out fast enough that you can do 10 in 30 seconds. But if he can do it, then I'm sure it's good. After that, we do have Dragon Man, which is another good fight. We ended up using Nebula for this fight because Nebula actually turns off all of the nodes. He is classified as a robot, so Nebula has the ability to turn off all of his nodes and his abilities at 5 amp charges. So what we're going to be going for here is, because ironically, as I said in the stream, I used to take Stun Reflect Dragon Man all the time in War, so seeing him on this node was like easy for me. I just used my rank 4 Nebula for it. You're going to want to build up to 20, obviously, eventually. You know, you're going to be dealt some block damage, but it's not going to be crazy. And then once you build up to 20, you're going to parry him. And the thing with the interaction with turning off his nodes and Stun Reflect is Nebula is able to transmit the 20 shocks, but she doesn't stun him. So, you know, if you guys ever turn just to watch it, we're going to have the 20. You're going to parry, and then you're just going to hold block regular, because he's going to get dealt the 20 shocks, but he's not going to stun. And it doesn't turn off Stun Reflect. Like, it's no way you can reparry into a stun. Like, the Stun Reflect is still up. So you're just going to want to use the ability accuracy to get the 20 shocks on there, and then when the, you know, when a heavy comes out, or you're able to intercept an attack with the SP2, you do that, you get the 40 shocks. I think we had to do it 4 times to kill him. And we ended up turning all the nodes off, and we were pretty good. Human Torch is another good option here. Not only does he turn off the Stun Reflect, but you know, he just melts Mystics anyway. Titania is good here too, if you could just focus on getting rid of the when you can focus on getting rid of the power gain, whether it's activation of SP2 or blocking an attack from the SP1. And then with Titania, if you want to stack up the staggers, you can get rid of the power gains too, which is another good option. Sandman's good because his SP1 reverses power gain, so he's not a bad option here. I mean, there's not really, I mean, the good news is when you root him with the heavies, it's not considered a stun, so you can pretty much just go ham on him. And it's not like Sandman, it's not like Dragon Man's immune to any of Sandman's buffs, so it's actually even better that you're going to be going for that. And Overseer is good too. You know, he does the concussion, so eventually he'll stop the power gain from coming out altogether. You know, the timer will go out if you have the 70% reduction. It'll end up getting rid of it, and then it won't come back ever. Spider-Ham is probably another good option here because you have the taunts. You're going to constantly let him throw the SP1. You're going to block it to whoop high regen, and pretty much just a full destroy domination with these characters. Like, it's not even like a bad thing. Next up is Gwenmaster, and this one's probably going to be the quickest one. She's made to be beaten by anyone. There's not really anything for her, you know what I mean? Like, there is no secret character to get rid of it. You do get, for some reason, you do get the flare node, which is the one that gives you 300% attack, but instead you deal no damage to her when you complete a phase. So, like, if you guys were to tune in just to watch that fight alone, we do use my rank 3 Mysterio on it because he was like one of the guys I had left. And you guys are going to see that we're doing insane damage every time we build her up correctly with the Emma Stone one. Emma Frost. Not Emma Stone. With the Emma Frost one, we built her up and we gained the insane Furies. I think we had like 12 or 13 of them, and we were just laying into her. We actually failed the prompt the first time, and then we get it the second time, and like we were just annihilating her. And then she got the Killmonger one, and we were still doing crazy damage. And that one was probably the easiest one. But yeah, anyone could do that fight, especially if you have the flare one. I don't know what determined it. It doesn't say she has it here, so like I don't know how we got it, but we did. I don't know if it's chance. I don't know if the road itself gives it to you, but we completely annihilated it with Mysterio. So anyone can work on her. There really is no like secret character. I guess if I had to give you one, it would probably be some type of damage over time champ. It's probably a good idea. I know Mysterio isn't one, but when she's on the Invisible Woman phase and she has the force field, it's a little bit easier to get her down on that phase when damage over time debuffs are on her. That's pretty much the only like real um, advice I can give you for that fight. There really isn't anything there, but yeah. That's pretty much my full guide for this path. We will be doing the other path some point soon. Not sure when. Like I said, I might be doing the live stream on Saturday. I might be doing it on Wednesday. Not really sure. It might be an early stream. Might be a late stream. But just keep checking my community tabs. You know, I'll post you guys and see. Let you guys know what the final verdict was. And yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys have any questions, you can type in the comments. I know that the border here is kind of annoying, but I don't know how to fix that when it comes to mobile streaming. That's why on the live streams I kind of have like borders here to not see like just like a black border for no reason. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like I said, if you have any questions, text in the comments. I'll let you know. If you need more counters for certain fights, just text me, and I'll get back to you when I can. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you all in the next one.